Hey guys, Curtis Bryan here from Curtis Bryan Photography here in Central Florida. Today I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a demo of Evoto and how we use it to prep our files for image viewing for our clients. So we're going to use this with a teen session that we did recently here in St. Augustine. This is the images that we finalized it down to, 46 images total. I'm going to walk you guys through the edits and how we do this. Typically in our studio, the way that we use Evoto is we use it for final images. We also use it for previews when people come to our studio to view their images prior to their ordering session. That's the case here, is we're going to edit these files so that they can preview them as like an edited version. With Evoto, it allows us to do it very cheaply, about 7 cents an image, and we can show them finalized images shortly after their session. It allows our process to be streamlined. It's an automated process for the most part now, and it takes away hours and hours of Photoshop work that we used to have to do previously. This works great with teenagers who can't get over the fact that they have blemishes, things like that they don't want to see in their images. Also, we do it a lot for boudoir images so that the clients go from their session and then are able to come and see edited images when they come for their previews. Something that we implemented in our studio recently is same-day viewing. So what that means is that the client will do the session, and then we send them off to lunch for an hour or so. They come back to the studio and they preview their images that same day. We found that this works great for seniors, works great for boudoir, people who either take off of work, take off of school, things like that, that it makes it difficult to come back to the studio at a later date to view their images. Evoto allows us to be able to do those quickly, easily, and gets it done within the hour time frame that we're looking at for that gap. Clients are ecstatic because they come in and they're expecting hours and hours and hours of work, and we're able to turn these around very quickly for them. For that. So let's jump in and see how we use Evoto to help make our workflow easier and quicker. So first thing here, when you come into it, you're going to load your images. I already preloaded these for you guys. This is library similar to Lightroom. If you guys use Lightroom, you just load your images into Evoto, hit the edit tab, and that brings you to this screen here where you can do your adjustments. Right hand side over here, we have our color adjustments. These are like our sliders like we have in Lightroom, exposure control, color control, things like that. This is our portrait retouching tab, and that allows us to do the blemishes, stray hairs. We'll go over that here in a second. If you guys are doing background adjustments, this is great for headshots. I'll do a separate video shortly on headshots and whatnot. And then we've got our clothing and accessory adjustments. We can adjust different things in clothing, cropping tools, and then we have connect to a camera if you want to do some studio shooting, tethered and things like that. So for now, the way that I start with this, these are JPEG images that I imported from the RAW file. You can import RAW files as well. I'll do a separate video on that here shortly. But for now, we just imported the JPEGs pretty much straight out of camera for that. And I'll show you guys how we use Evoto for this. So the cool thing with this is that even if you import JPEGs, which is why I'm showing you guys this at this moment, is you can still do many of these adjustments with the sliders and things like that that you can do with the RAW. So that being said, you've got your sliders over here, you got your temperature control, same kind of sliders that you guys are used to in Lightroom, exposure control, contrast, things like that. So all the sliders are here, hue, saturation, layers, curve adjustments. The cool thing with Evoto is Evoto has this masking tool. The masking tool allows you to select the person. You can select the background, or you can do a custom selection, and allows you to choose specific elements in the image. If we choose person here, it shows you the overall person that we're going to be adjusting. So the adjustments that we're making are only to the person. It's not to the entire image. So if we go brighter, we go darker, it's only adjusting the person that's in the image. The cool thing here is from the person, we can also select skin. So if you want to make skin a little bit brighter, a little bit darker, you can do all that there. If you want to do the same thing with just the face, a lot of times, we photograph things, we just want to adjust the face, the neck. Sometimes when we're doing lighting, the face gets lit, but the rest of the body gets a little bit darker. So this allows us to adjust, the body skin and bring that up brighter, darker, and what have you. Same thing with lips, teeth, hair, clothing. Clothing's kind of cool too because we can come in here, we can adjust some of the clothing. We can make it darker, brighter. If we wanted to, we can change some hue, saturation. We can change the colors. I guess it helps if we do the right color. You know, we make it a little bit more vibrant, a little bit darker. And it's only adjusting the clothing of the dress. So lots of different options in here. For me, generally, I don't do a whole lot of individual edits like that. I don't do, you know, go through and choose, you know, clothing, things like that. Every once in a while, we'll adjust some of the skin. But for the most part, the way that I use this tool is I actually use it on the background. So if you choose the background, it does the same thing on the background. It adjusts the exposure, adjusts the background, so we can make it dark, we can make it brighter, however we want to do that. Now, my particular style is I like to have the subjects kind of popping off the screen a little bit, so I like to darken backgrounds, having a lit person and then a background a little bit darker. So generally speaking, I come in here and I'll adjust the background down a little bit to make her pop a little bit more off of that background. And simple adjustment, and we're done with that. If I wanted to, again, we can go through and change the skin, but for the most part, these images are all pretty well lit on her skin. We might make some adjustments in the editing portion of it. But for the most part, I just want to lower down that background there. Now, the cool thing with this is once we make that change, we can come here, we can sync all of these images. So if I select every single one of these, come up here to sync, and then we can choose the color adjustments. We can turn these off. I haven't done anything to those yet, so it's not going to change anything anyway, but just for now, we'll turn those off. And now this is syncing that color adjustment to the background that I made on every single one of these images. So we come in here, we'll see every single one of these images has a darker background than it was previously. So it's making that uniform adjustment. We just do it one time. Now this is going to take a little bit longer because I'm walking you guys through how I do the edits and all those things on these images. Normally this would be a 30-second process for those images and they'd be done. But for the sake of demo, I'm showing you guys kind of how that works here. So this was the original, and this is what we synced it to. I'll show you the difference. Same thing here, original, what we synced it to. So we're just giving her a little bit of contrast with the background, original, and what we synced it to. We can go in there, we can do it for just the highlights only if we wanted to adjust highlights down, you know, the wall in the background a little bit. So we can go in there and fine tune how we want these to look. Now something I want to show you guys with this, moms tend to not like wrinkles in clothing. Teenagers like to throw stuff in bags, moms kind of hate that. So Evoto has a tool here, which is really cool, called De-Wrinkle Clothing. So if we slide this slider this direction, we're going to notice that all those wrinkles get softened. We can probably get rid of most of them there. So if we go all the way 100%, we're there. If we go 50%, we're kind of there. So we still see some wrinkles. So this is a to-taste thing. I like to have a little bit of wrinkles in there because there's usually some type of texture in outfits. Nothing is really, this looks kind of plastic to me. So I like to have a little bit of texture in there, but it's adjustable with the slider, so you guys are able to make those adjustments as you desire. So I'm kind of in that section there. And again, we can sync all of these together. We're going to come over here to sync, hit the little tool here. We're going to click on the clothing adjustments and then sync the clothing adjustments. And that will make that change to every single one of these images. Once we hit the sync button. That usually helps. There we go. Alright, so now you can see every single one of these images we have synced it so that the wrinkles are softened a bit. So I'll just kind of show you guys that. This is the original. This is the sync. So we've softened some of those wrinkles. Actually, I didn't soften those for some reason. There we go. Okay, so that's kind of our starting point. Is I like to do the backgrounds first. Same thing here. We'll come through here. We'll choose the background, darken the background down a bit here. Again, we're making her pop off a little bit more. Now, something to be careful of if we zoom into 100%. If we drop this all the way down, it's not too bad on this image, but a lot of times you get some kind of the haloing effect to it. So we have to kind of be mindful of that when we're doing this. And we can bring our shadows up on this one. They bring those shadows back into that door. Now, I tend to do these in similar sets. So all of these images here are kind of similar. So we're going to sync all of those together. And we'll show you kind of what we're looking at here. All right, same thing here. We'll come into the background. I want to add a little bits of more shadow to that background to boost that up a little bit. Now, something on here, you notice there's a hot spot on her face. So this one I will go through and I'll do the adjustment for her individually. So we're going to choose, on this particular case, we're going to choose the person. We're going to choose her face. You'll see just kind of adjusting the face. I just want to drop that highlight down a little bit. Something like that. Probably a little bit more. There we go. So now we're going from kind of that image to that image. And just kind of softening down that brightness there a bit for that. There we go. And if we wanted to, we can come in here, we can go the body skin. So we see a little bit of darkness down the bottom with the light fall off. So on this one, we're going to bring the shadows up a bit, just to kind of bring in the legs a little bit brighter on the overall image. And we're a little bit better there. Perfect. All right, so same thing here. We're going to choose the background. We're going to darken that background down just a tad. Something like that is good. Darken that background down a tad. Drop some of the highlights down in the background. All right, so these next two images are similar, so we'll sync those together. This one I'll do a little bit of the person. So we're gonna bring up a little bit of the shadows on her. And bring up a little bit of the bright, or the exposure. And then we're going to go back to the background, and we're going to drop the background down a bit as well. And we'll sync all three of those together. Same thing here. So now these images here, we're going to have to go into Photoshop for some of this because we have a light stain here in the image. We have some people that we'll take out. So we'll have to take those out in Photoshop. Evoto can't do that at the moment as good as Photoshop can. But with the backgrounds like this, again, we can do the same thing. We can come in here, we can drop the exposure down, we can make her pop a little bit more off that background. I got a little bit of too much exposure on her, so I'm going to select the person. We're going to drop some of those highlights down on the overall person. Something kind of like that. And then now we're evening that exposure. We'll bring the shadows up a little bit on her. And we'll go with something like that. And we'll do the same thing for this image because they are similar. And that shows you the before and after. Again, same thing, we're a little bit bright on her, so we'll drop some of that exposure down a tad. This one, she looks pretty good, so we're going to select the background. We're going to drop that exposure down on the background a bit. This is one of the ones that you'll see if we come in here. There's some gaps in the arms and things like that. There's the haloing around here. So if we go too crazy with this, we're going to get a little bit of halo. So we want to kind of avoid some of that. So we'll do something kind of like that there. And that looks good to me. This one's a little bit different, so we'll adjust that individually. Again, same thing, we're just choosing the background. We're going to drop that background down a little bit. We want to make a little bit more pop of her off of there. Drop some of those highlights from the background down its head. Perfect. This one we might boost her up a little bit. So if we go to the person, choose entire person, bring that up a little bit. Perfect. Now something cool about these as well is if you wanted to change just the sky, so let's go to the background selection. So sometimes we want to make the sky a little bit more vibrant. So we can choose the background, we can choose the sky, and so it's only going to choose the sky portion here. And if we wanted to up the saturation, make it a little bit more blue, we can do the vibrance here. We have saturation, there, so you can make these adjustments as you want to. If you want to make it a little bit more blue, we can drop the the temperature down a bit to make it a little bit more blue. So there's different individual adjustments you guys are able to make to customize the images fairly easily. And again, I'm showing you a little bit more in depth than what I would typically do. So a little bit faster when I do this myself. And we're going to choose the entire background. Again, just darkening those backgrounds, making her pop off the background a little bit more. These ones are similar, so we'll sync those together. This one, she's a tad bit dark, so we're going to do an adjustment on her as well. So we're going to choose the person. We're going to bump up that exposure a tad bit. But I don't want the whites to go super bright, so we're going to drop those whites down a tad. Kind of like so. This one's the same. Sync that one together. This one's pretty close, so we'll do the same thing with the background. If you wanted to make an adjustment again to the clothing individually, so that's what we're doing here, is we're darkening that clothing down a little bit so it's not so super bright white there. Now, one thing I'll show you guys on this as well, Evoto has the option to change the sky out. So if, for instance, we shot this and we wanted a cool looking sky, I would never change this particular sky because we photographed it and it was really cool looking that day. But Evoto has the option if you would like to change that. They have a sky replacement option here, and they have a bunch of skies built in to the software. So you can choose any of these skies. There's some sunrise and sunset skies. So for instance, if you wanted something like this, and you can play around with these and choose the one that looks the best. Obviously, lighting conditions, things like that, you would have to take into account. But there's plenty of options here for you guys to choose from if you choose to do a sky swap or something of that nature. Obviously, you would want the lighting to kind of match the overall scene. So be careful. I mean, that would actually kind of work. But you know, I don't need to do that for this image because we have a cool looking sky to begin with. Alright, drop the background down a tad. This one I'll bring her up a little bit from the shadows. Something kind of like that. These are going to be portraits, so we're going to do just a little bit of the background adjustments. We don't have to do much. Just kind of like that. Again, we're just kind of making her pop, and this is all subject to taste, so there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just a preference of what it is that you want your images to look like for the client. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good. This one we might do a little bit of adjustment on her individually, just to soften up those shadows a tad bit. Same thing with this one. There. All right, that's the full set. So we did all of the exposure background adjustments that we're going to do for these images. Now let's jump into the retouching for the client's face and things like that. So we go open up the retouching tool over here. It gives you a whole bunch of different drop-down menu options here. There's blemish removal, skin retouching, facial reshaping, facial expression, teeth, eyes, makeup, hair, hands, body reshape. So now we can go through and fine-tune our editing and have Evoto do that for us across the entire image. Now, me personally, I tend to might want everything to be consistent across the entire set. So generally speaking, when I do this, I do the blemish removal and I sync it to all of the images so that the blemish removal is the same for all the images. Same thing with the hair removal, things like that. Generally speaking, body reshaping, I generally don't do body reshaping. I'm big on people look a certain way, they're shaped a certain way. I don't want to go in there and change that necessarily unless something specifically asked for. Some of our boudoir clients might want the arms shaped a little bit more, the legs, the hips, things like that. There's an AI reshaping here that can kind of do that for you. If you wanted to do that, you can come through individual things. You can change the body shape from there. You can change the head height. There's all kinds of different options available to you guys on these sliders. So you can change those as you wish. Arms, legs, if you want to make a leg skinnier, things like that. But I generally don't do that, especially with teenagers. I don't really mess with that a whole lot. Sometimes we might do an arm here or there. But for the most part, we kind of shoot them as they are. But we will do freckles, acne, things like that. So we'll zoom into the face here. We'll make this slider. So now this is 100%. Obviously on these, you would adjust these to taste. Everyone's a little bit different. Some people have different preferences on the skin texture and things like that. I rarely ever do 100%. I usually bring it down to about 70, 68%, something like that, just so we can get rid of these initial blemishes. So if we go here, that's kind of what we're at before. That's kind of where we're after. So again, we're keeping the texture on the skin, and we're not getting rid of that completely. Now, if she had freckles, she doesn't have freckles, but we could drop the freckles down, and that would bring the freckles back into the image. It does get rid of those. Next big thing that I do is reducing the face shine. So this is going to reduce some of the shine on the nose, shine on the forehead, the cheek, things like that. This one I bring up pretty good to kind of smooth out that skin completely. And we'll probably bring these up a little bit more than blemishes. There we go. Dark circles, these are going to be underneath the eyes. 100% lowers that down. So there's you kind of see what it's doing there. Again, this is a two-taste thing. I don't ever do anything 100%, very rarely, because then we start getting into plastic doll look. But I will soften it down a little bit to there. Eyeglass glare, this does really good with removing eyeglass glare. We don't have any of that at the moment with this particular person, so we don't have to worry about that. Lip wrinkles and flakes, this kind of smooths out the lips across there. Double chin, we don't have an issue here, but if we wanted to, this kind of darkens the chin area underneath. Forehead wrinkles, we don't really have any, but that would fix the forehead wrinkles up here. 11 eye lines, I think, are around the face there. Eye wrinkles would be the corners of the eyes. Smile line is going to be this portion here. So every once in a while we'll come in and soften that a little bit. Marionette lines, I believe, are the ones down over here. Body blemishes. So this is important. If we do the blemishes on the face, you can kind of see how our face is getting there, but we still have a little splotchiness here. Body blemishes will kind of remove some of those spots on there. So we want to make sure that we hit that as well, because we don't want a super soft face, no blemishes, and then have blemishes on the arms, things like that. Neck wrinkles, those are going to be down around here. We don't have any in this particular image. Usually I bring those up a little bit just to kind of soften those. Armpit retouching, we don't have any armpits exposed on this particular image, so that would be this section there. Stomach stretch marks, obviously we don't have those. Skin retouching, so again, we can jump into as much as this as we want to. Again, it's done to taste. Dodging and burning, this allows us to even out skin tones. So if you look at her face here, we'll zoom in a little bit closer. It's looking like it's doing her chin. If we go to 100%, yep, we're kind of evening out those shadows that are there. This has a tendency to look fake very quickly. We look at this here at 100%, she looks kind of like plastic, right? So I, again, very rarely do 100% on anything. Sculpting, dodging, and burning, that's going to bring in shadows, kind of like you would do for like hair and makeup. If you're doing a makeup application, it's going to kind of shape the face, sculpt the face, do some contours. Again, all done to taste on these. Textured smoothing, this smooths the skin but keeps texture in there. We can kind of see her texture still there. But again, it's very easily to get overdone on that, so I usually don't mess with that too much. Skin softening, I don't ever do skin softening, but if you wanted to do skin softening, that's the option there for you. It gives you kind of glow for that. Something cool that's on this as well is we can do body skin dodge and burn. So this will kind of even out some of those shadows. We're looking at over here around her necklace, kind of evening out some of that stuff. But again, if you go too far, it looks kind of fake on that. Frequency separation, we can boost that up if we wanted to. That does a little bit more high-level skin retouching on that. Generally with the teenagers, I don't mess with that too much. If you wanted to come in here, if you wanted to change the skin texture, we can do that. There's different presets here. You can make it, matte skin, satin skin. You can change the glossiness, texture, things like that. I usually don't mess with that too much, but the option is there available to you. Something that I do a bit of is this AI face complexion. What that's doing is it's kind of making the complexion consistent, like the color of the skin consistent across the face. We kind of see what it's doing, a little bit of more red area up there, and it's kind of making that into that overall kind of same color. Same thing with the AI body complexion. This gets a tendency to go overboard real quick. You can kind of see here, so we're making her look kind of pale. So you have the sliders there available to you. It's kind of making the skin consistent across the entire thing. Unified body complexion, it does very similar. It's trying to unify all of the colors in the skin to keep it there. Now, one thing that I wish that they would do, we can do a little bit here, is the tan lines. I think that's coming in a future update. A couple people have asked for that, so that will be coming here. But if you wanted to choose a skin tone, we can change skin tones. We can make them tanner, darker, whatever. Again, I don't really mess with that a whole lot. Same with skin radiance, all those things. Facial expression. If you wanted to generate a new smile, we could do new smiles. Someone who's not smiling, the mom really wants to get the smile. Again, I don't really mess with any of those things. Your smile is how you smile, in my opinion, so I don't really play with that too much. Teeth, sometimes, kids with braces, we want to do some brace removal, things like that. So you can make teeth perfect. Oops. So there's different options available for that. Teeth whitening, if you want to make your teeth white. I might do a little bit of that here and there. Usually that's something that I don't do unless it's requested for that. Eyes, sometimes I'll come in here and do eyes. Here we got a little bit of dark eyes going on there with the lighting. So if we wanted to slide this, it kind of shows you there what we're looking at. Again, this has a tendency to go overboard really quick, so just less is more generally on these types of adjustments for that. Iris flare, if you wanted to brighten up the iris down over here. If you want to change catch lights, we can change catch lights. We can add different catch lights into here. So it's really cool of how they kind of set this up to things that you're able to do for that. Makeup. So if you want to get into retouching makeup, things like that, that is available to you on here. We have highlight makeup. We can change, brighten highlights. We can add some more contouring if you want to shape the face a little bit more. Eyebrow makeup, if you want to make it, eyebrows lighter or darker. Eye makeup, we can change. Sometimes I'll do this if we're looking to do like a kind of a dramatic edit. We'll add a little bit. I'll do a little bit here on these images. Saturation, if you wanted to add, more saturation around the eyes. Brightness, lip, if you want to add more lip makeup. So they forgot their lipstick, you want to change the lipstick, you want to change the color, add a little bit more color to it. You're able to do that as well. So lots of cool tools here. You have a whole makeup suite basically. You can choose the eyebrows individually. You can change eyebrows if you want to change eyebrows. So a lot of different options on here available to you. You can change some eyeliner. This is great for clients who either don't get the hair and makeup done if you offer that, or the hair and makeup person doesn't do a very good job. This particular client had hair and makeup done prior to coming, so we're going to kind of leave most of that there. If you want to play with eye color, you can change contact lenses, things like that for those. So all the options are there available to you if you would like to do that. Same thing here with hair. Hair is a really cool thing for me because in Photoshop, it would take a lot of time to get rid of these stray hairs on the side. So we can do that here, stray hair removal, slide that to the right, and you'll start noticing that these stray hairs kind of go. Now, I don't ever do 100%. If you go 100%, sometimes it looks a little bit fake, like kind of in this section over here. So generally 70%-ish is usually what I'm comfortable with for me. It still gives you some texture in the hair there. You're not making it like look like a helmet where there's no stray hairs going on there. If you want to change the hair volume, they want to add more hair, less hair, things like that. Same thing on the top. We can go more or less. Again, I don't usually mess with those. The part line, this is here. This will adjust the part line a little bit if you want to fill it in so it's not as prominent. Some girls don't like the hairline there. Smooth hair if you want to have it smooth. So I usually don't mess with that too much. We might do a little bit like that, and that just gets rid of some of those little stray hairs coming around. You can kind of see there, like that. Hair shine, if you want to change some hair shine. Again, you have you can fine tune a lot of these things to your liking. White hair if you want to darken the white hair. If you want to change hair color, there's options available for you for that. This is kind of fun. I play with the kids a lot with this, and I'll be like, hey, what would you look like with purple hair? What would you look like with brownish hair? What would you look like red hair? So I've actually had girls do this and want me to do different color hair and send it to their mom so they can take a look and be like, hey mom, I want to dye my hair. So kind of cool tool there, but it's there if for artistic things. I can see a situation where I'm doing a photo shoot and I want to do an art type project for myself mostly, or a print competition, something like that I want to adjust the hair color of the person before me. But for a normal client, I would never do that because this is their hair and this is who they are. Hands, if you have close-ups of hands, you can come through here. You can change the, soften the hand veins, things like that. And then your full body reshape, we talked about that a little bit. Now, the cool thing with Evoto is that similar to what we did previously with the exposure, we can sync these changes to every single image. So we can select all of these images, Control A. We can sync. We're going to change the color adjustments. We're going to turn those off because each image has a different color adjustment potentially. We just want to do portrait touching on this one. So save that. So now we're only going to sync the portrait adjustments. So it's not going to affect any of the exposure or anything like that we've done previously. Sync that. So now every single one of those images, all 45 images, are synced. They're all retouched the exact same way. So every single one of these images has the exact same retouching, the blemish removal, everything that we did for those things are on here now with all of these images. So now we can kind of go through here, we can look and see. And the little dial thing is still spinning, so they're still updating some of those adjustments there. But now instead of spending time on every single image, Evoto allows us the opportunity to be able to do that very quickly for all the images. So that is how I would edit all of these images. Now you would go up here and you would export these images out to the clients. Now this video took about 30 minutes or so to walk you guys through it. Normally in my studio this would take about 10-15 minutes max if I was doing it without explaining it. So Evoto has significantly helped me get my images done quicker, helps me keep everything consistent. So now every single image is edited exactly the same throughout the entire set. And gives me more control over the final output of what the images look like. So now when my clients come in to view their images for their senior pictures or boudoir session or wedding or whatever it is, they have a fully retouched image for them to preview, and now we don't have to worry about the blemishes and, oh, my hair is crazy or this or that, how teenagers in particular get about the images. So there you have it. That is how I use Evoto to help streamline my business, help speed up things. So it allows us the opportunity to do same-day edits on images and show our images within an hour after photographing the client. So their experience goes through the roof because now they're coming to us again, shortly after their session. I'm super impressed that we're able to get the images turned around that quickly, and they look great. Final images for the clients to preview. So make sure you guys check out Evoto. Check out how it can help fine-tune your studio process and help you be more efficient with your clients' work and help your studio get images done faster rather than going through Photoshop for hours and hours at a time. As always, I'm here for questions. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions about anything. I've got a couple more videos on Evoto coming in the future of different features like tethering and things like that, so make sure you guys check those out. But until then, I'm Curtis Bryant here in Central Florida. Have a great day.